Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that are live on this webinar, then you're very, very welcome. For those of you who are listening to the recording, shame you couldn't join us live, but you're also very welcome as well. So my name's Simon Person. I'm here joined today by Frederic Payer from our French office. And today the webinar title is all about data quality. And as you can see from the title in front of you, a must for your IAM and potentially some other journeys as well. Before we start, we should just say that this webinar is being recorded, as those of you who are watching the recording will have already found out. For those of you that are online, we hope that we can get your permission for that recording. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very dull webinar indeed, because there's nobody listening at all. Anyway, enough about the formalities. Today is not about me, it's all about Frederic. So Frederic is really, really glad that you were able to join us today. And hopefully you've got a load of pearls of wisdoms to share with us over the next 30 minutes or so. So to introduce Frederic, Frederic has joined the Turnkey team based in France. He brings with him a wealth of experience in the identity and access management domain, and in particular, having seen these sorts of problems from the client side and also from assessing and understanding what's actually going on under the hood with some of these problems from a consulting and a executive alignment side of things. So Frederic, if you'd like to just introduce yourself a little bit more, then we can crack on with the show.
Yes, thanks, Simon. So what you already presented me from the French office. In fact, I have some 25 years of experience on project management and also in IAM project setup in big bank industries. So now I'm happy to bring my experience to Turnkey and to Turnkey customers, in fact.
Fantastic. And as I said earlier, it's great to have you along with you on these sorts of webinar series. So a very, very quick agenda for today. We've got to do the official bits, the introduction to Turnkey. We fully expect that most of you will have heard about that before, but it's always worth reminding people that there's more to Turnkey than you just think in your particular client engagements that we've done thus far. But then we'll go on to the meat of this particular webinar, why data quality is a must for particular IAM journeys and what the prerequisites are that may well be in there. We will also take a look through what the impacts are if you don't get this sort of thing right. And so we'll show you what you're missing out on with doing this properly if you don't actually do it properly. And then finally, we'll be looking at how we approach this problem as a turnkey-based solution and what our sorts of frameworks and approaches look like to be able to avoid those pitfalls, so that Frederic isn't scaring you that it's all a complete mess forever and ever and ever. So on with the introduction to Turnkey. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend very long on this. So for those of you that have worked with us across our strategic practice lines, then this will be very familiar, but hopefully there's some new information here as well. So Turnkey is all about making the world a safer place to do business. And we do that through our integrated practice lines. So pretty much everything that we do is centered around risk and risk management. So it makes sense that we've got that integrated risk management pillar at the top of what we do. And that's always setting out to put the right information in the right people's hands to make the right decisions. So that could be anything from an enterprise risk management challenge all the way down to information security principles and some of those security hardening things. Now, the other two practice lines are responses to risks, or treatment plans, in fact. So we'll talk about the application of cybersecurity one first. That's about protecting your information and the information assets from insider and external threats. So anything from the cybersecurity threat hunting, identification of issues or threats that may well be emerging, and working through those different domains to understand exactly what we need to do and how we need to do it to protect those different assets, either from malignant attackers or just mistakes, because they also happen as well. And then we've got the identity and access management side of things. One of the key controls in any kind of risk management journey, any kind of information security practitioners will know that. But that's about giving the right access to the right people for the right reasons at the right time. So taking your joiners, movers, leavers process and making sure that that works as efficiently and effectively as possible so that you can have the appropriate treatment plans for those risks. Now, underpinning all of those strategic service lines is our bedrock managed service offerings. So they were there to continuously help and support making sure that the right things are being done. But that's where the data quality side of things comes in. So data is a massive currency for all of those service lines to be able to do the right things. And that's what we're going to be focusing in on today. So implicit in what we do is also the way that we do it. So we see ourselves right in the center of these Venn diagrams, taking on the business process understanding, because it's really important to understand what you're trying to achieve with your outcomes. And that allows us to present the right solutions to you to really drive that kind of fine line between compliance and operational effectiveness. So we don't just constrain, we enable to make the right decisions happen. Of course, it's implicit that we come with the right technical skills to do that job as well. So we have the unparalleled technical expertise in all of the products that we work in to make sure that we're able to push the right buttons and make sure that we can still have those business interests in mind to push those right buttons. But it's really important as well to understand some of the external stakeholder perspectives and the compliance objectives that may well be placed upon you. So coming from a big four audit firm myself, and having had a lot of my colleagues who have got similar sorts of experiences aligned with the operational world from having worked in industry, we can know what good looks like and help you to work towards that in as pragmatic a manner as possible. So hopefully that's it from me.
Right.
We can hand across to Frederick, and you can take us through that journey as to why data quality is so important and what it is that we're actually managing with that.
Right. Thanks, Simon, for this nice introduction, in fact. Yeah, so I will go to the meat now of our web conference and explain you a bit why we should really consider this data quality. In fact, it's not so obvious because quite often when you speak to IAM stakeholders, like they don't see it as important as it is really. So you have to make your mind alone, I think, sometimes. Because, well, I know that we have a few vendors around this table, so sorry for this, but when you listen to this, to the vendors, well, they will sell their solution, which is a fantastic solution quite often, and it's plug and play. They will say, well, in a matter of days, you will solve your access management issues. You will have a fantastic return on investment. Your users will be very excited by this experience. And yeah, they sell some dream, in fact. And the point is that, well, I already deployed some of the tools, and it's not really a dream because the journey is quite tough because you are bumping into incidents, you are bumping into problems, which are not linked to the product, in fact. But yes, you have data inconsistency, you have alignment, which is not here. So yes, it takes time. Yes, it's difficult journey quite often if you don't consider data. The business stakeholders also, which are responsible for their data, which are proud of their data, and they will say, well, it's working. They don't really want to touch it. And it's working because for years they have put some straps, some workaround on their database. And yes, they know it's stable now. But if you change the core system, the core IGS system, for example, well, the workaround won't work anymore, and it will somehow fall apart. So that's why I say you are a bit alone, and you have to feel this data quality risk which is behind the project. So I will just continue by stating a small figure, of course, from Gartner analyst. It's very generic figure, but we all know. And yes, let's figure out that poor data quality, cost a lot to your company, cost a lot to all the company. Of course, we are not speaking here of IAM data quality, but globally, as Simon said, it's a generic problem. But more again, so we have done some surveys. I have seen some other integrators that have studied this case. And yes, end-to-end data quality, the vendor says it as well. It caused more than a quarter of the IAM project failures. So of course, you can find some other cause of failures. But yes, this one is really too very high in the pile to consider. So in fact, yes, I'm speaking of data quality, but let's see why it's so important in IAM. So quite often the IAM specialists tend to consider themselves in the center of the world. We are in the center somehow of IT, maybe not in the center of an IT system, but still quite a lot of interactions if we see this screen. So of course, I'm not going to detail you all the what's around an IAM system, but it's quite complex. We have, of course, a provisioning system, and you have the HR world here with their HR data and so on, which somehow, well, it's quite simple. Users, they come from an HR data source. If we speak the main language, it can connect. But afterwards, you will find that we have a second data source, a third data source. Okay, these users are added by here. Non-human users will be added by some other place. And this provisioning process becomes quite often complex. The IT process also that you have to connect. The IT process, of course, one would like to have a ticketing system to address access management. One will say, well, of course, it's important to connect the CMDB, and here you will have different data to align between the CMDB, which has his data source, with our data. So it's complicated to align this. You have a PAM system quite often. You might have a second IAM system to interconnect. So this can be a complicated world, speaking with different language, in fact. You have the users of, you have the business process which are going to use IAM. Here you will have finance that will speak finance. You will have logistics that will speak logistics. They will all interconnect in a different way, some via AD, some via LDAP. So yes, it becomes quite often, it will become a small noodle plate. And let's think also that all this IAM has to be accessed by different type of users. So of course you will have the workforce that will have his access management. You will have some customers, some partners, some subcontractors. All this will have different small differences. So this is why this alignment is far from being obvious from our point of view. So here you have a bit two choice. So, or you ask your IT integrator to, well, you are going to integrate a tool, and well, if you find some issues, you will fix the data quality and so on. But here, I think, considering the huge landscape, this ecosystem, I think you really have to have a data quality approach. And that's why let's deep dive a bit into what is data quality and how do you speak data. And here you can ask yourself, is my data accurate across all my data sets? Is it complete? Do I have all the information all over the place? Is it consistently maintained? And yes, you see here you ask the right questions. Is it up to date? Do I have some unused data or outdated? Do I have, of course, some duplicates? Yes, let's see each data set and let's ask ourselves this question. So you see behind these words, you have in fact a full, well, it's all about these 6 dimensions of data quality. And yes, you see here that we're changing a bit of, not of business, but yes, it's not about integrating some workflows. It's not about doing some parameterization. It's about looking at this international standard of data quality and trying to understand how this data should be set. Of course, you can continue like saying it will go, let's go, and I don't have I don't have enough money to look at the data quality. But then look at all what you risk somehow if you don't control. So yes, you know that you will have a business impact. You know that somehow you might have regulatory issues, and of course you will also lose some money here because your users will not be able to access on time. It will take them 1 week or 2 weeks to get the proper access. So yes, your delivery, your business will be delayed. And look at the customer. If they don't, if they cannot access, then it's even more terrible because quite often they will just switch to another provider. So yes, the business impact can be high. Of course, IAM is also about security. IAM is securing the identities. But in some systems, you see the same user, which have one identity, two identities, three identities, and well, they're not really linked to these users and so on. So, what about an identity and IAM solution if you don't control the identities? How do you control the security risk? You don't. Huh? And of course, behind it also becomes quite complicated. So you spoke, Simon, about the right role at the right time with the list to have. But quite often the managers will go and do attribute some roles, like doing some cut and paste. Well, it works. If I copy this role, but no, this is not how you are doing access management. Huh? So if you want really to control the risk, you must know what you are doing. And of course, this all will lead to some operational problem, incidents, service desk usage. But you have experienced all this already, so you know what we're speaking about. The question is now, when is there the best time? Do I have to make this analysis before the implementation? And of course it's better. And I was doing it for one customer, and now he's moving to the implementation phase, but he knows what he has. He knows what he has under the hood. So he can anticipate the risk, he can anticipate the project, he can limit the project slippage. So yes, it's better we project managers and customers wants to anticipate. So it's of course better to do before the implementation, or you can do it in parallel of an implementation, and this will permit you to limit it when you land. You will limit it, and you will avoid the bad user experience on the new tool. So this is of course important as well. But afterwards, as I said, it can be somehow years of issues that you will face. So afterwards, when you will be too fed up of these issues, well, 1 year after or 2 years after, or whenever in the journey, you can do this cleanup, this remediation to improve your system efficiency, and you will see the return on investment will be quite fast. Huh? So that's it. So just to switch now to, I hope you are convinced. And now let's switch a bit to the methodologies that we propose. And yes, our data quality framework. This is how we see it. So you have understood that we really want to have this data mindset, data quality framework. And in fact, afterwards, we have a methodology which is maybe basics, but let's put the basics sometimes on the paper. It's useful. We have a first phase, which is analytics. Analytics, of course, will start by the profiling of how do we work, what is your data model, and we will adjust our tool set according to your data model. So let's get to know each other and let's work together. Afterwards, we have this, our data analyst will do data crunching, and here it's we will get the juice out of it. And afterwards, we will have our findings, root cause. I mean, of course, we want to not only to solve the issues, but also to understand why we have these issues. This will help us give the good remediation. So let's share and decide, share all our findings, and let's decide together what do we do. So we have some short-term remediation, and yes, short-term remediation. I mean, let's make this cleanup. Let's take batches, or sometimes it's individual cleanup. Sometimes we can do it automatically, but sometimes also it takes time because you have to call the users. You have to merge two identities. So yes, it's a bit of it can be a bit of a painful work here. And afterwards, after we have remediated, we have solved the issues, let's work together on improvement and monitoring. So after the analytics come the 2 steps of the actions forward. And I would say as well that it's important at this stage to have a dedicated team that will address this, focusing only on these topics. I mean, remediation, again, it can be a long way, it can be a painful work. So I think you cannot do it business as usual. I think you have to have a small team dedicated to this, doing it step by step. So that's why I think it's we can propose something important here. Let's dive a bit into this analysis part. What is analytics, in fact? Well, I have designed some few Excel behind to explain. It's not that I want to use Excel, but we will address it in a project management way. I mean, we will have step by step. I mean, all dimensions, one by one, for the users, for the groups, adjusted again to your landscape. But we have to have a project management approach. That's what we have. But I mean, it's not about Excel. What we want is to adjust our methodology to tailor it to your landscape, to the customer landscape. So it means that if you have talent, let's use talent. This is a tool that we can adjust and that will permit you on the long run maybe to follow and to control your data. But we can also propose you to deploy some best-in-class identity quality tool like Brainwave. So I mean, it's just about making a best of breed and not just clean up based on Excel. Now, this is not the approach as well. And of course, we can use your IGA tool reports that you will deploy. Yeah? So they will have some reports that can give you some control on the data. So that's the analytics part. And the remediation, again, it's important. That's when I said, let's share together and let's see what we are doing with all our findings. And I think at this level, it's important to measure, to have a risk approach. So the risk approach you see in this framework for this customer, it was based on 4 to 16, but the risk is on security, the risk is on user experience, the risk is on maintenance. So let's measure all our findings. Let's measure also the costs of how much it will take us together to solve this issue. And then let's decide together if we park this, if we do it, if we do it automatically. But I think here you see you have a good, you start to have a good control of your risk, and that's what we want here. So this is a remediation part, so a small part, a one shot or part to clean up. You will see it here on this graph. We have done the analysis. The remediation will correct the issues. And afterwards, we can control that, yes, it has been solved. But afterwards, of course, let's look at this problem solving. That's what we call, of course, improvement. We don't want this crap to come again. So in fact, you can see in the left column that the data model can be focus on improving your RBAC model, on automating some roles maybe, but also maybe on improving the training of the run team, on reviewing some access right if somebody has too much access right, on making some fields mandatory here or there. So this is how we are going to solve the problem for a long run. And of course, we want you also to control your data afterwards, to be able to see that it stays under control. And this is where we can set up some threshold in entering flows. This is where we can maybe do some control script in the ADs or in the LDAP, set up this new reports or dashboard within an IGA tool or with a Power BI, making some dedicated access right reviews. So this is where it will permit to be a bit safer and to stay clean, in fact, to keep your data clean. And after, of course, you can close it with second control. I mean, at one stage, all these controls will be a bit automated as well, so we can play it as much as you want. And I think I spoke a bit too much, but I'm getting to the end of this presentation. And I hope that you have understood the need and somehow the approach that we want to have here.
Well, thank you, Frederick. Certainly, we do have some questions that have been already submitted through the Q&A function or the chat function. So if there's anybody out there who's looking to put some through, then we'll try and answer as many live as we can. If we don't answer them live, we may well be able to follow up with some more detailed answers. But please do get those questions firing in. And yeah, first of all, thank you, Frederick, for taking us through some of those topics. And I think that's certainly something close to my heart, because we can see some of those issues that keep coming up because of data concerns or data issues. So I do hold true with the data quality being a key risk that we manage on most of our projects, and often it can be the cause of quite some issues as well.
Yeah,
So,
and, I mean, it will damage the tool experience from a user. It will damage also the integrator reputation. So nobody is happy, but we don't see this risk properly, I think. Sorry.
fantastic. Yeah, no, I agree completely. So just looking through some of the questions that we've had here. So I think when you were talking about the different types of data, you mentioned that earlier in the presentation. One of the questions said, who owns that data? So do you see that as an IAM data ownership, or is it other people in the business or different owners?
So, for example, when you look at the authoritative source, you have very often the HR, which is owning his data. So it's you will have to discuss a bit with the HR, which is not always easy. And you can train them to improve their data here. And at the end, you can also put some threshold on your system. So, okay, I'm not owning the data of HR. But I will control what is coming to my system. So of course you can protect yourself here. But we speak about HR, and I mean usually you have a nice HR database. But then let's go to the non-human users. And here, who owns them? Well, quite often, if you go into some IT landscape, it's not clear. So you have to go back to the paperboard and yeah, to write down the process and who owns the creation, what is the life cycle of these non-human users. Sometimes, yes, it doesn't exist, Simon. So that's a question that we have to see data source by data source. Yes.
No, you mentioned HR. I don't think that HR was particularly called out in this question. There certainly isn't an exercise in rubbishing the HR world at all. But the question still stands. Do you have any tips for engaging with data owners who don't know that they're data owners?
Yes, for each data, I think we have to have one data source. So we have to have one data responsible. And we want unicity of this data somehow. So yes, the Raki initially is important. Are we just users or are we the owners? This should be written down. Yes. Am I reinventing some data in my IGA system, or do I take the one of the other owner of the CMDB, for example? Yes, this should be decided initially. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Like, identifying them first of all is not as easy as it sounds. You often get people who will run away from any of those responsibility areas. But once they have put their hand up to say, yeah, recognize the fact that I'm a data owner, they still don't always know what that means. So trying to educating that it's not necessarily so scary. It's probably something they're already doing. If you present a whole list of individuals that can raise and release payments, if people are unfamiliar on that list, then somebody's going to take action in some form or other because they don't think that that's appropriate. So a lot of the times I think it is about education and enablement to say, well, this is what you do and this is kind of what we want to see from those processes as they go through. So no, very, very interesting to kind of improve that enablement, that engagement via education wherever possible. So again, another question here. How long does these or do these exercises normally take? So if we're talking about the analysis phase and then the remediation, do you have a rough order of magnitude for how long those sorts of things take?
I think what takes a bit of time, of course, is to get to know each other, to adjust a bit the tooling, to get the data, and to get a bit into your IT landscape. So this first profiling step takes quite a long, I think. Afterwards, the rest of the, let's call it audit part or analysis part, like data crunching or also listing all the issues with the root cause, with the remediation. With the analysis part can be done pretty rapidly. I would say in 3 weeks we have already something quite good here after the profiling. And well, remediation, of course, it all depends. It all depends, especially if the issues is the remediation is manual. That's what we said. So here, I think it's good to have a team again dedicated, because yes, it can be painful. You have to force a bit the guy to change. So this is not obvious in case of manual changes, so manual remediation. But for a normal system, I hope, yeah, I would say, well, from our experience, it's 2 months. We have already something. So let's take 1 month for analysis and 2 months for remediation. I think it's not a huge project here. And after, of course, what do we want to improve? This is more of a free text, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. It's always those difficult questions whenever the word remediation is mentioned. It depends is normally the answer, and it's the good old fallback of a consultancy answer, really, that let us in and we'll tell you the answer afterwards. But I think, yeah, you've given a little bit of an indication that it can be as quick as a couple of months. It can be even quicker if there's easy, quick wins to be done. But it could also be a relatively difficult task if you don't have some of the prerequisites in place. And that's actually another question that somebody's asked, really. Are there any prerequisites to get started on this journey of analysis and the remediation? So what needs to be in place before we can actually make some good steps forward?
I would say we will have to step in all kinds. So sometimes there is lacking documentation, but okay, let's sit and let's, as I said, let's take the whiteboard and make the documentation. In this case, it will be part of the remediation. But prerequisite, I mean, It's also with our questioning that we will understand the issues. So yes, it's with the questioning that you understand that, okay, it's not only a single source of truth, but we use two sources of truth. So I think, yeah, we will have to clean up together. So I don't see really a prerequisite, Simon. Do you think of any?
Um, the only thing that I can really think of as a big prerequisite to make good progress is that somebody cares enough about the problem.
Yeah.
So if you recognize the fact that your data is not in good shape, or that you're suffering some sort of consequences of that, having the appetite to do something about it and to make some progress is pretty much all we need. Because once you've got somebody who actually recognizes the problem and is prepared to take some sort of step to improve it, then all of the other things will fall into place.
That's what we said, the business owner approach. And my data works. My data is clean, and I deliver since 15 years. Yes, but maybe you will have to change something. So yes, this change mindset. You
Yeah,
are of course right.
yeah. Well, I certainly agree. There's no hard kind of technical prerequisites. So if you've got documentation, that will help. If you haven't, so be it. If you've got a clear stakeholder matrix of ownership, that's a brilliant start. But most people don't. If you've got a list of the systems that hold this sort of information, well, most people do from a GDPR point of view now, especially if you're in some of those regulated geographical areas, then your registers of processing activities and all those sorts of stuff. Again, massive, great big assistance in all of that assessment. But a lot of organizations that either doesn't exist or is inaccurate. So I think, yeah, you're right. We plan for the worst and hope for the best when we start these things, but it's the desire to do something and make a positive change that's the real prerequisite there. So again, we've had another question that came through. So what about if there's existing tools within the solution landscape or existing vendor products? So role mining tools, for example, or many others. Can we work with those and can we make best use of the available information that's already there?
But that's the aim. The aim is really to again to take the opportunity, to take the use, well, to take your tool and to improve the usage of it. So yes, I spoke of talent. If there is talent, if you have a role mining again, and or again, I mean, some IGA reports are really good. The problem is that they might not be complete. So the IGA report, again, it will not make you the comparison, the data alignment between a CMDB and the IGA solution. So let's make the usage of your tool. Again, let's see also together if some tools like Brainwave can bring you something. So we can propose you also some new tool. But the idea is not to do an exercise aside of your landscape. It's really to take the advantage of your landscape and to make it to bring it more added value. Yes, definitely.
Fantastic, fantastic. And now we've got another one here to say, do we have any references in the data quality improvement projects? Have we had any sort of return on investments or some indicators that we've been successful to deliver actual benefits? And there's another one following up with that to say, have we had also any roadblocks or any sort of issues that we've uncovered that come up quite regularly? But let's talk about the reference or the positive side first. So what kind of KPIs or improvements have we seen?
Well, I know some KPIs if you don't do the work. I mean, again, for years you can have issues and priority one and so on. But okay, but return on investment, I think it's quite interesting. The first return of investment, which we have seen with the customer, is yes, I mean, within 3 weeks, as I said, he knew what he was speaking about. He knew what was the inconsistency, so the non-accuracies, the duplicates. He knew all about his data. And I mean, for customers, it's really relieving to know what he's speaking about. He knows his risk. So already knowing his system is the first return of investment, I think, to better anticipate. Afterwards, I mean, yes, with sometimes, and sometimes we have some findings, but okay, I mean, we can live with them. It's not a big deal. We will maybe do the remediation in 2 years. But yes, sometimes this remediation, and I'm not going to give examples, but yes, we did a few thousands alignment with the last customers. So a few thousands of data that we change here and there. Well, it's few thousands of headache less for some customer, for some users. Definitely. And what I wanted to, yeah, that's the two return of investment. So already knowing your system, and afterwards, of course, saving some time for your users, for your business.
That's good to know. Good to know. And yeah, I mean, certainly when some of the projects that I've been overseeing and been involved in, we've kind of looked at the qualitative and the quantitative metrics and measures. And sometimes you can see very quick, tangible cost reductions, even by understanding users that technically should no longer exist or have left the business. You can sometimes get some license savings by reducing those numbers of users, and you can very easily create a software asset management improvement because you've got a good track of levers in your system. Other business indicators are a little bit more qualitative to measure. So risk reduction. Well, risk reduction is always good. You've got efficiencies there where you can say we're taking time out of the process to do the same sort of control tests. So user access reviews, for example, if you've got clear and good processes, you don't need to spend as long on user access reviews. So you've got that time saving there and being more efficient. But measuring the actual risk reduction, how less likely are you to be subjected to a phishing attack or a simulation there? Well, that's really difficult to quantify through data cleanliness, but you are reducing the attack surface. You are presenting a better level of ownership. You're potentially federating that out there to the business, to the data owners, and therefore you're spending more time, or sorry, less time in the IT function to support those processes. So you're recognizing the true cost and enabling that across the business rather than centralizing it into a cottage industry of pain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there are definitely quantifiable measures and return on investment that we've had in license reductions. We always try to say that you might get some audit efficiencies. Now, let's be clear, you're never going to reduce your audit fees. They'll find a way of keeping them the same. But you might be able to get some better value from those audits. You may well be able to at least make them work harder for that money because you're removing the easy things for them to find, and they actually have to ask you some intelligent questions as well. Apologies, not really that sorry though for any auditors that might be on the call.
But I will take the example as well of a customer who had like, but okay, that's how it is. It's going via M&As and so on. The companies are consolidated like this. But they had like 80 ADs. Wow. So okay, it's like this. But do we really know what's into these 80 ADs? And you see, in fact, that 2 ADs were doing the same stuff, the same type of access for end users. So yeah, I mean, 80, it's easy to understand that it's good to take the time to look under the hood.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good stuff. Well, I think time is marching on. There are still a few questions that I don't get to ask, but I think we'll probably have to follow those up offline if we need to. But before we go, I did want to call out the fact that we've got a lovely virtual event coming up in October. It's a bit of a marathon for us at Turnkey. So we're doing a 24-hour conference going across all of the different time zones. So it's technically a 2-dayer, but it's a 24-hour period. So it's a 1-day conference where we're marathoning through the night in the EMEA time zones, so we can catch our Asia Pacific colleagues on the morning of the 5th. But the key day for the European time zone is the 4th of October. There is a QR code on the screens there. I'm sure all of you are picking up your phones and trying to scan that right away. So we'll leave that on the screen for a couple of moments. But we've got loads of sessions planned across all of the 3 strategic streams that we're operating in. So integrated risk is covered, identity access management is covered, and the application and cybersecurity realm is covered as well. So there's a good mix of clients, some of our partners as well, and of course you've got the likes of Frederick, who are leading some of the capabilities in our different geographies, who are imparting far more pearls of wisdom as well. So do join that. I believe it's a free conference. I'm pretty sure it's a free conference. So all we need is some of your time there. The sessions will be made available on demand for those that register, but keep those registers coming in.